Hey friends, welcome to Thursday, April 2nd. And so today for your reading lesson, we're going to be thinking about words in context, which means understanding what words mean using the context clues. So looking at the learning target, right, pull back your arrow and shoot once. And let's read it. It says, use context clues to figure out the meanings of words and phrases. So friends, we have to remember, what are context clues? I'm like, what is that? So let's read this little passage and see what are context clues and how can they help us figure out the meanings of words and phrases that we don't know when we're reading. It says, what can you do when you're reading a story and you come to a word or phrase you don't know? You can look for context clues or nearby words, phrases, and sentences to help you figure out the meaning. So context clues are words that are all around the word or phrase we don't know, and then those clues all put together can help us figure out what it means. Let's see. Context clues can also help you with words that have more than one meaning. You can use context clues to figure out which meaning makes the most sense. So for example, I have the word cool, right? So I know cool can have different meanings. Cool can mean like, ooh, it's like chilly about the temperature. If it's cool outside, it means it's a little cold, a little chilly. Or I could say, ooh, that's so cool, right? And cool in that phrase means it's awesome, right? Or it's really neat. So if I'm thinking about the sentence, Jorge was wearing a really cool shirt. So I can use the context clues or the clues around in that sentence to help me figure out the meaning of that word cool, which could have different meanings. So am I saying in that sentence that Jorge's shirt has a cold temperature, that is chilly? Sure. Does that make sense? No. But could I mean that someone's shirt is awesome or really neat? Yes, that would make sense. Okay? So using those clues, if I'm talking about a person and I'm talking about their clothing, those are the clues that tell me, that can't be about a temperature. That's meaning that something's awesome. So those were the clues that helped me figure out the meaning of that word that could have different meanings. So we're going to read this little cartoon, this little passage, and then we're going to practice trying to use some context clues to figure out the meaning of these underlined words or phrases. So looking at the cartoon here, I kind of get an idea of what's happening. So I see a little boy, right? He's like under his blanket in his bed. So I'm thinking maybe he's like nighttime, right? And he's in his bed and look what he's doing. Oh, he's reading and oh yeah, I see what he has. What does he have in his hand? Looks like a flashlight. So he's probably reading like in the dark in his room. And then I notice, who's at the door? Looks like a person, another person, maybe like a dad, right? And he's coming in and he looks kind of like surprised, like, what's going on in here? So I'm thinking maybe this little boy's supposed to be sleeping, but he's sneaking and reading with his flashlight. And then dad comes in and catches him. And then lastly, I see this little like speech bubble at the top, or like a thought bubble. So it's like this little boy's thinking something, and there's an owl with a question mark. I'm like, what could that mean? That I might need to read and get some more context clues so I understand what this little boy's thinking about. Why is he thinking about an owl? So let's read a little passage and then let's try to figure out some of these tricky words. Arthur liked nothing better than to stay up reading long after he was supposed to be asleep. He would pull his blanket over his head like a tent, turn on his book light, and become absorbed in a story. Tonight, though, his dad caught him. Turn off that light, Night Owl, said his dad. You've got school tomorrow. Dad, you surprised me, said Arthur. I didn't hear you come in. I'll turn off the light now. So as I was reading, I'm thinking about, what does this word absorbed mean? And then what does that phrase night owl mean? So I'm thinking that's what has to do with this part up here where he's thinking about an owl. So it's because his dad called him a night owl. So I'm like, what does that mean if you call someone a night owl? And what does this mean that Arthur was absorbed in his story? So I've got to think about my context clues. So I'm thinking what was happening in the story? Like, oh, Arthur was staying up late reading. He was supposed to be asleep. And he was hiding under his blanket and he had his little flashlight and he was reading his book. Right? And he loves to do this, right? This is like his favorite thing. He liked nothing better. Right? And then we were right, that was dad. Dad caught him and says, "Turn off the light, like you've got school tomorrow." And then he calls Arthur, the little boy, a night owl. So I'm like, what does Dad mean when he says that he's a night owl? And then because Arthur was reading his story, right, and he was absorbed in it, says, "Dad, you surprised me," right? So he didn't hear Dad come in because he was reading his book, right? And he was surprised. He was like, "I didn't hear you." So I'm thinking all of those things give me clues about what absorbed and a night owl means. So let's think the word absorbed first. So you're going to be on here with me. So what do you think the meaning of the word absorbed is? So say I have the clues of what Arthur likes, right? He loves to stay up late reading. That's his favorite thing. And then his dad caught him, and he was surprised by Dad. He didn't hear him because he was absorbed in the story. So what do you think that means? So Arthur had become blank in a story. So I'm like, what word could I put there that would make sense? Or what do you think we could put there? Arthur had become like interested, focused, right? Any of those words could work, right? Because he's so focused on the story, he didn't hear or know anything else that was going on around him. But absorbed is tricky because if you know the word absorbed, you're like, I don't normally think about absorbed when reading. I think about it with like a sponge in water, like the sponge absorbed all the water. All the water went into it. So thinking, so that makes sense though if you're reading? I mean, kind of figuratively, he got so sucked into the story to read it. But can he literally get sucked in the story? Does it really mean the story sucked him up in it? No. Figurative means he was so interested and focused that he couldn't think about it. He didn't notice anything else around him. So right here, where you're talking about the meaning of absorbed, thinking about those clues and tell us, you can write, what does absorbed mean? Then if you go on the next one, now we gotta think out what was the meaning of the phrase night owl. So his dad said, turn off that light, night owl. So I mean, what are some clues? This one I might have to infer a little bit. So I'm thinking in my brain, I'm like, wait, what do I know about owls? Owls stay awake at night. Oh, so an owl is awake at night. I'm like, who else in the story is awake at night? Arthur, right? He's up there, he's reading, and he's awake at night. So I'm thinking that when you call someone a night owl, it just means they're a person who likes to what? What do you think? I would say they like to stay awake late at night or be up late at night, right? They call them a night owl. So that is using those clues and thinking about what's happening in the story and what I already have my prior knowledge sometimes about things can help me figure out that phrase. Does that literally mean that Arthur is an owl? No, right? It's not a literal phrase. It's figurative, just means he likes to stay awake late. Awesome job on this. You can type in your answer right there. And then we're moving on to the second part. So we're going to keep using our context clues. Now we're going to read another story and answer a couple questions about those unknown words here too. This one's called Seaside Surprises. So if you're by the seaside, what does that mean? Yeah, you're like the coast. You're like along the sea or the ocean right here. And then there's going to be some type of surprises in the story. So surprise when you're like, ooh, something kind of unexpected happens. Now let's see, and I have a little clue about what might be happening here by the photograph. And what do you see in this photograph? I hope you said a whale. If you said a whale, you're absolutely correct. So something's going to happen by the seaside, right, by the ocean, and probably some type of surprise that might have to do with a whale. So let's read and see. I didn't know what to expect when my family went hiking on the Oregon coast. I'd never seen the Pacific Ocean before, but I sure knew what I wanted to see: a whale. After a picnic lunch, we hiked through a thick rainforest. We saw chipmunks, a lizard, and a hawk. The trail gently snaked its way up the steep mountainside to the top of a huge rocky cliff with a great view of the ocean. But I couldn't spot any whales. Then we heard something move through the woods right behind us. We turned, and there stood a huge elk with giant antlers. We all froze in place, barely breathing, until the animal slowly walked away. Then we finally relaxed. We all started laughing and jumping around in excitement. And that story goes on a little longer, but for time, we're just going to use this part right here. And now we're looking at these two phrases, right? You have the word spot and you have the word froze. Both of those words are multiple meaning words, means they can mean more than one thing. It just depends on the context or the way it's used in the story. Right? So we're going to think about the context here and use some clues to help us figure out the meaning of those words. So thinking about that phrase right there, that sentence. But I couldn't spot any whales. So I'm trying to think, what does that word spot mean? So I have to, again, think about my context clues. Like, what do I know? Well, I know the narrator, right? They really, really wanted in the story was to see what? A whale, right? That's what they really, really wanted. And then they were hiking. They went through this big hike up a steep mountainside. They had a great view of the ocean. It means like they could see the ocean really well. And what do you think that they were probably looking for when they're looking at the ocean? Right, they want to see whales, so they're probably looking for whales. So, but I couldn't spot any whales. So, I have my clues that they have a great view, right, which means to be able to see something really well. And I know what the author really wanted was to see a whale. So, what do you think that means if I couldn't spot any whales? This one we have some multiple choices, so let's see. Does it think it means that the narrator couldn't see any whales with spots? Was she looking for whales that had spots? The spot there mean looking for something with spots? The narrator couldn't catch any whales? Is the narrator trying to catch them? Catch some whales? The narrator couldn't see any whales? Does that match some of my clues and my context that I read? Yeah. And the narrator couldn't mark any whales. Were they trying to put a mark on the whales? Put some spots on the whales? Mark them? No, I don't think that's what they're doing. So based on my clues, click which one you think would be correct. Which do you think? And then the second one, you can just type in yourself. We talked about what were some of the clues that helped you pick the best answer here. Think about what were the clues that we talked about right from the story. What's the detail here? What was the detail right here? And then the last one, based on the context clues, what do you think the word froze means? Oops, now we're looking at the word froze. It says we all froze in place, barely breathing, until the animal slowly walked away. So again, thinking about the meanings of froze, I'm like, when I think of froze, I think about it being like cold, right? Turning into ice, being frozen. So would that be super easy if I saw the word froze or freezing and ice in my answer to pick it? Yeah, because I'm like, that's what froze means. But if I'm reading this here, we all froze in place. Are the people becoming frozen and turning into ice? No. Are they cold? No. That's not what it means here. What does that mean if I say freeze, or I tell you like we all froze? It means you all what? So you're thinking like, oh, I stopped or I was stood still. Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, if that's what I think, which one of these is best? So I could again try them all and replace them into the blank here. We all blank in place. We all stopped in place. Yep, they stopped because they saw what? An animal, right? There's an animal walking there. They all got cold in place. Was it talking about them being cold? They all turned into ice in place. Did it all become ice? Or we all danced in place. Are they dancing? Think which one would make sense? What does it mean if you froze in place? All right, them real quick then. Let's go over them. Hopefully, for the first one, you put that the narrator couldn't see any whales. You might have been tempted to do this one. They couldn't see any whales, but it added with spots. Is the narrator looking for whales with spots? It just means that they couldn't see any whales. And then the clues you could have had for number 2 are about that the narrator wanted to see a whale or that they were on a huge cliff with a great view of the ocean. And then for the last one, you were right that froze means stopped. So now I want you to go on to the next one. There's another video here. Read The Wind in the Leaves and watch that video. Answer these questions Then read Yosemite Morning and answer the rest of the questions on your own. Don't forget to click